The research vessel Stellar Horizon drifted through the Kuiper Belt's outer reaches, its sensors probing the endless void. Dr. Elena Santos stood at her station, dark eyes fixed on the quantum scanner readings. After 20 years of searching for signs of extraterrestrial intelligence, humanity was about to discover they weren't alone. But not in the way anyone had hoped. "Captain Zhang, I'm detecting unusual gravitational distortions," Elena called out, her fingers dancing across the holographic display. "The pattern suggests artificial manipulation of space-time." Captain Sarah Zhang crossed the bridge in 3 quick strides, her weathered face illuminated by the scanner's ethereal glow. 2 decades of deep space exploration had taught her to trust Elena's instincts. "Show me." The main view screen flickered to life, revealing what appeared to be tears in the fabric of space itself. Through these wounds in reality emerged massive crystalline structures that seemed to absorb nearby starlight. They were beautiful in their alienness, but something about their formation pattern triggered every warning instinct in Zhang's mind. "Initiative first contact protocols," Zhang ordered, her voice steady despite the gravity of the moment. "Let's show them humanity comes in peace." The Stellar Horizons communication array broadcast humanity's carefully crafted greeting, a complex message combining mathematical sequences, peaceful intentions, and cultural information translated into multiple formats. The response came not in words but in the form of crystalline shards that sheared through space itself, nearly bisecting their ship. "Evasive maneuvers," Zhang shouted as more crystal projectiles lanced through the void. The research vessel's engines screamed in protest as they pushed beyond their design limitations. "Get me Earth Command, priority channel." "Hull breach on Deck 3. Lieutenant Rivera reported from Tactical. "Shields failing." Zhang made a decision that would alter the course of human history. "Initiate the Cassandra Protocol. Send everything we got on their weapons and ships back to Earth. They need to know what's coming." The Quantum Entanglement Transmitter, a prototype device intended for instantaneous communication across vast distances, activated just as the alien vessels surrounded them. Zhang watched the confirmation signal flash green and allowed herself a grim smile. They might not survive this encounter, but humanity would not face this threat unprepared. The Swarm, as they would later be known, had made their first critical mistake. They assumed destroying an exploration vessel would demoralize humanity. Instead, they had given Earth something invaluable: advanced warning and technical data about their capabilities. When news of the Stellar Horizons' destruction reached Earth, the response was not panic but cold fury. Within hours, the United Earth Defense Council convened an emergency session. The age of peaceful exploration was over. The age of humanity's ascension was about to begin. In hardened bunkers beneath every continent, dormant defense projects roared to life. Project Prometheus, a classified weapons development program that had theoretically existed for centuries, received unlimited funding. The orbital shipyards, officially designated for civilian spacecraft construction, began retooling for military production. Most importantly, the quantum data burst from the Stellar Horizon provided crucial insights into swarm technology. Their crystalline weapons, while devastating, operated on predictable frequencies. Their space-time ruptures left distinct signatures that could be tracked. Even their supposedly impenetrable forms had observable structural patterns. Admiral Victor Chen, addressing the newly formed Earth Defense Force, summed up humanity's response. "They think they found an easy conquest. What they've actually found is a species that has spent its entire history preparing for this moment. We've imagined this scenario in 1,000 stories, played it out in 1,000,000 simulations. Now it's time to show them why humanity has survived every challenge it has ever faced." The Swarm had expected to find a primitive civilization barely capable of interplanetary travel. What they found instead was a species that had spent centuries imagining and preparing for this very conflict. Every science fiction story, every war game, every theoretical defense scenario was about to become humanity's greatest advantage. As the first wave of swarm ships approached the solar system, They encountered not panic or submission, but a species already mobilized for total war. The humans they had dismissed as primitive had spent generations thinking about space combat, developing theoretical strategies, and imagining countermeasures to technologies they hadn't even encountered yet. The Stellar Horizon's sacrifice had given humanity something more precious than time. It had given them purpose. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean floor, in a facility known as the Leviathan Complex, Dr. Amara Patel stood before a massive holographic display showing the approaching swarm fleet. The crystalline vessels moved in perfect geometric patterns, their confidence evident in their direct approach. But what appeared to be arrogance to alien eyes was exactly what humanity had been counting on. "They're following exactly the attack vectors we theorized," Amara noted, addressing the gathered military leaders. "Just like every simulation we've run for the past 50 years. The Leviathan Complex was just one of dozens of hidden installations that had existed long before humanity officially reached space, while the world watched civilian space programs take their first tentative steps beyond Earth's atmosphere. These facilities had been preparing for a very different kind of first contact." General Marcus Chen, grandson of the legendary admiral who had first rallied Earth's defenses, activated a secondary hologram showing Earth's orbital defense grid. Project Oracle was right all along. Hostile first contact wouldn't come from primitive aliens, but from an advanced civilization that saw us as easy prey. The defense grid wasn't just a hastily assembled response to the swarm's arrival. It was the culmination of centuries of theoretical warfare preparation, disguised as civilian infrastructure or hidden in plain sight. Every communications satellite contained dormant weapon systems. Every space station housed military-grade shields. Even the lunar colonies, advertised as scientific outposts, concealed massive rail gun batteries aimed at the likely approach vectors for an alien invasion. "Initialize Antigone Protocol," Amara commanded. Throughout the solar system, quantum-encrypted signals activated systems that had waited generations for this moment. Space itself seemed to ripple as advanced stealth fields deactivated, revealing humanity's true military might. The swarm's initial scans had detected what appeared to be a primitive civilization with basic space travel capabilities. Now they faced an entirely different reality. Massive battleships emerged from within gas-giant atmospheres where they had been hiding for decades. Asteroid bases revealed themselves to be mobile fortress platforms. Even Earth's oceans concealed submersible spacecraft carriers. "They thought our technology was limited to what we showed the universe," Marcus said, watching as humanity's real space fleet took formation. "They never considered we might be hiding our true capabilities." The centerpiece of humanity's defense was the EDF Prometheus, a vessel that represented everything humanity had learned from centuries of theoretical space warfare. Its hull, composed of self-repairing metamaterials, could adapt to different types of attacks. Its weapon systems, inspired by everything from ancient mythology to quantum physics, included technologies the swarm had never encountered. In high orbit above Mars, Colonel Yuki Tanaka supervised the final deployment of the Ghost Fleet. These ships, incorporating revolutionary quantum stealth technology, could approach within striking distance of swarm vessels without being detected. "Our ancestors spent generations imagining space warfare," she told her crew. "Now we get to show the universe why humanity's imagination is our greatest weapon." The swarm's advance had slowed, their initial confidence shaken by the sudden appearance of human military assets that their scans hadn't detected. Through quantum entanglement communications, a technology the swarm had dismissed as theoretically impossible, Earth's forces coordinated their preparations. But humanity's greatest advantage wasn't their hidden technology or secret military installations. It was their diversity of thought. The Earth Defense Force drew upon military traditions from every culture, combining strategies that had evolved over thousands of years of human conflict. Admiral James Wilson, commanding the newly formed Phantom Division, implemented guerrilla warfare tactics that would have been familiar to ancient resistance fighters. "The swarm expects a conventional war," he explained during the final briefing. They'll be looking for large fleet formations, predictable attack patterns. We'll give them chaos instead. The Phantom Division ships, incorporating stealth technology developed in secret facilities around the world, could approach within striking distance of swarm vessels without being detected. They would be humanity's hidden dagger, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. In the Antarctic Command Center, Field Marshal Sofia Rodriguez coordinated the global defense network. Holographic displays showed the position of every swarm ship approaching the solar system, thanks to the quantum sensors developed from the Stellar Horizon's final transmission. They're maintaining their standard formation, Sophia observed. They still think we're primitive savages barely capable of spaceflight. That arrogance will be their downfall. The swarm's advance had slowed, their initial confidence shaken by the lack of easy targets. The solar system's outer defense platforms, disguised as research stations, tracked their every move, but the aliens had yet to encounter humanity's true defensive capabilities. As the final pieces fell into place, General Chen addressed the combined Earth Defense Force. For centuries, we imagined this moment in our stories, our games, our dreams. We created thousands of scenarios about first contact and interstellar war. Now those imaginations become our blueprint for victory. The swarm thought they found an easy target. Instead, they found a species that has been preparing for this fight since we first looked up at the stars. The stage was set. Humanity's trap was ready. All they needed now was for the swarm to spring it. The swarm fleet emerged from their spatial tiers at the edge of Saturn's rings, exactly where Earth's strategists had predicted. 300 crystalline warships, their faceted hulls refracting the distant sunlight, moved in perfect geometric formations. Their confidence was evident in their approach. No scout ships, no evasive maneuvers, just raw power on display. Admiral Yuki Tanaka watched from the bridge of the EDF Prometheus as the enemy advanced. The massive view screen showed the swarm fleet's approach, each ship tagged with detailed tactical data gathered over months of observation. Fascinating, she murmured. They're actually following standard invasion pattern Alpha, just like in the simulations. Operation Starburst had been centuries in the making, though the swarm would never understand that. Every science fiction author who had written about space battles, every military strategist who had theorized about cosmic warfare, every gamer who had imagined interstellar combat, they had all contributed to this moment. All units, initialize Phase 1, Tanaka ordered. Throughout the solar system, humanity's forces began executing their carefully orchestrated dance of destruction. The first indication that something was wrong came when the swarm's forward elements encountered what appeared to be a debris field, fragments of destroyed human vessels and stations. Their sensors detected no energy signatures, no signs of active technology, just wreckage drifting in the void. The debris was a lie. Each piece of apparent wreckage was actually a quantum stealth drone, their energy signatures masked by technology reverse-engineered from studying the swarm's own spatial distortion drives. As the alien fleet passed through the field, thousands of these drones activated simultaneously. Instead of conventional weapons, the drones projected overlapping fields of quantum interference. The swarm's crystalline ships, which manipulated space-time for both propulsion and defense, suddenly found their own technology turned against them. Their perfect formations began to break apart as local space itself became unstable. Phase 1 complete, reported Commander Sarah Chen from Tactical. Their formation is compromised. Moving to Phase 2. From hiding places throughout Saturn's rings, the Ghost Fleet emerged. These ships, their hulls coated in metamaterials that absorbed both energy and light, had been waiting in ambush. They struck not with conventional weapons, but with gravity lances, weapons designed specifically to exploit the swarm's dependence on spatial manipulation. The aliens responded exactly as humanity had predicted, attempting to open spatial tiers to regroup their forces. But humanity had spent decades preparing for this exact tactic. Execute Phase 3, Tanaka ordered. Throughout the solar system, Massive quantum resonators activated. These devices, disguised as communication arrays and research stations, created a complex web of interconnected fields that made stable spatial tiers impossible within the solar system. The swarm's primary advantage, their ability to appear and disappear at will through space, had been neutralized. But the true genius of Operation Starburst wasn't just its technical sophistication. It was psychological warfare on a cosmic scale. As the swarm fleet struggled to maintain formation, they received thousands of simultaneous transmission bursts. Each burst contained tactical data about their own ships, vulnerabilities, weaknesses, predicted maneuvers. Humanity wasn't just fighting them. They were demonstrating that they had understood and countered swarm tactics before the war even began. "They're breaking formation," Chen reported, a note of satisfaction in her voice. "Shifting to defensive patterns we've never seen before." Tanaka allowed herself a small smile. "That's because they're improvising. Probably for the first time in their species' history. Exactly as planned." The swarm had evolved to become the perfect military force. Disciplined, coordinated, unstoppable. But in achieving that perfection, they had sacrificed something crucial: creativity. Their responses were programmed, their tactics predetermined. They had no concept of adaptation in the heat of battle. Humanity, on the other hand, had spent its entire existence adapting. Every battle in human history had been a lesson in evolution, every defeat an opportunity to learn and improve. Now, facing an enemy that had never needed to evolve, humanity's greatest weakness had become their greatest strength. "All ships, execute Phase 4, Tanaka commanded. "Show them why you never corner a species that turned adaptation into an art form." The main human fleet, which had been holding position behind Jupiter, finally moved into action. But instead of attacking as a unified force, they broke into hundreds of smaller battle groups. Each group employed different tactics, different weapon configurations, different attack patterns. The swarm's command structure, faced with hundreds of simultaneous but different threats, began to show signs of strain. Their attempts to counter one human tactic left them vulnerable to others. Their perfect coordination became a liability as conflicting response patterns caused chaos in their ranks. From the bridge of the Prometheus, Tanaka watched as the battle unfolded exactly as humanity's simulations had predicted. Not because they had perfectly anticipated the swarm's responses, but because they had understood something fundamental about their enemy. The swarm had never faced an opponent that forced them to think creatively. "Final phase," Tanaka ordered. "Let's show them why humanity's greatest weapon has always been our imagination." As the battle reached its climax, humanity unveiled their final surprise. Every human ship, every drone, every weapon platform began operating independently, each implementing tactics that evolved in real time based on the swarm's responses. There was no central command to disrupt, no single strategy to counter. The swarm had come expecting to find a primitive species ripe for conquest. Instead, they had found humanity at its finest, adaptive, creative, and absolutely prepared to demonstrate why they had survived every challenge their harsh universe had ever thrown at them. The holographic war room aboard the EDF Prometheus displayed a three-dimensional map of the ongoing conflict. Commander Maya Singh watched as thousands of data points tracked both human and swarm fleet movements across the solar system. But unlike the geometric patterns of their crystalline enemies, human ships moved like schools of fish. Fluid, unpredictable, seemingly chaotic yet perfectly coordinated. "The swarm is retreating from the Jupiter sector," reported Lieutenant Carlos Rodriguez. "They've lost 18% of their forward elements to Ghost Fleet strikes in the last week alone." Maya nodded, her dark eyes following the movement of red markers representing swarm forces. Their once perfect formations now showed signs of disorder, gaps where there should have been none. The mighty invasion force that had entered the solar system was learning a harsh lesson about human warfare. Sometimes the most dangerous predator was the one you couldn't see coming. Status of Operation Hydra. she asked, referring to the multi-pronged guerrilla campaign that had been systematically targeting swarm supply lines and communication nodes. Phase 3 completed ahead of schedule, Carlos replied. The Phantom Division reports successful deployment of quantum virus packets into their command network. Every time they try to coordinate a large-scale response, their own communication systems feed them conflicting information. The war had evolved far beyond simple ships and weapons. Humanity's centuries of preparing for this moment had produced technologies that targeted not just the swarm's military capabilities, but their fundamental way of thinking. The quantum virus, for instance, didn't just disrupt communications. It introduced subtle errors into their tactical databases, making them question their own strategic doctrines. Admiral Tanaka's latest psychological warfare assessment is fascinating, Maya said, pulling up a new holographic overlay. The swarm's response patterns show increasing signs of individualization. Ships are beginning to act independently rather than as part of their collective strategy. They're being forced to think for themselves, and they have no idea how to handle it. This had been the true genius of humanity's approach. Rather than trying to match the swarm's superior technology directly, they had turned the aliens' greatest strength, their unity and coordination, into a weakness. Every human attack was designed not just to destroy, but to create uncertainty, to force adaptation, to make the enemy question their own capabilities. The Ghost Fleet, now operating in small hunter-killer groups throughout the outer system, had perfected the art of hit-and-run warfare. Their ships, practically invisible to swarm sensors, would appear just long enough to strike critical targets before vanishing again. But the physical damage was secondary to the psychological impact. The swarm had never encountered an enemy they couldn't detect, couldn't predict, couldn't understand. New contact, Carlos announced suddenly. Massive spatial distortion forming near Saturn's rings. Looks like they're trying to bring in reinforcements. Maya smiled grimly. Right on schedule. Signal the Lazarus group. Their trap is about to be sprung. The swarm had become predictable in their desperation. Every time they lost a certain percentage of ships, they would attempt to open a spatial tear to bring in reinforcements. But humanity had spent months preparing for this moment, studying the exact quantum frequencies their spatial manipulation technology used. As the massive tear in space began to form, dozens of previously hidden quantum resonators activated simultaneously. The carefully calculated frequencies didn't try to prevent the spatial tear from forming. Instead, they subtly altered its properties. The swarm reinforcements emerged from the tear, directly into a carefully prepared kill zone. Lazarus Group engaging, Carlos reported. Multiple quantum torpedoes locked on target. Spatial tear is beginning to destabilize exactly as predicted. The quantum torpedoes, another product of humanity's centuries of theoretical weapons development, didn't target the swarm ships directly. Instead, they created localized fields of quantum uncertainty, making it impossible for the crystalline vessels to maintain their structural integrity. Ships began to break apart, their own molecular bonds turning against them. But even this devastating attack served a deeper purpose. Every engagement was designed to demonstrate to the swarm that humanity had not just prepared for this war. They had anticipated every move, countered every advantage, turned every alien strength into a weakness. They're trying to retreat through the tear, Carlos noted, watching the tactical display. But the quantum interference is making stable spatial manipulation impossible. They're trapped. Maya studied the holographic representation of the battle with professional detachment. The swarm ships, their perfect formations now completely shattered, were attempting to escape using conventional propulsion. But in doing so, they were being forced to abandon their rigid tactical doctrine, to act independently, to think creatively. Everything their society had engineered out of themselves in pursuit of perfect unity. Send word to Admiral Tanaka, Maya ordered. Operation Echo is ready to begin. It's time to show the swarm why adaptation isn't just humanity's greatest strength. It's the fundamental law of survival they forgot. As she watched the battle unfold, Maya reflected on the irony of the situation. The swarm had spent millennia perfecting themselves as a military force, achieving a level of coordination and tactical precision that should have made them invincible. But in doing so, they had engineered out the very qualities that had allowed humanity to survive countless near-extinction events throughout their history: creativity, adaptability, and the crucial ability to learn from failure. Now, facing an enemy that seemed to anticipate their every move, that turned their own technology against them, that forced them to think and act in ways their rigid society had never prepared them for, the swarm was learning a lesson humanity had known since they first looked up at the stars. In the face of an uncaring universe, it wasn't perfection that ensured survival. It was the ability to change. Admiral Yuki Tanaka stood on the bridge of the EDF Prometheus, watching as the final battle of humanity's first interstellar war unfolded across the holographic display. The remaining swarm vessels had gathered for one last, desperate assault on Earth. Their once perfect crystalline formations were now ragged, their movements showing signs of individuality that would have been unthinkable months ago. "They're evolving," Dr. Elena Santos observed, studying the tactical data streaming across her console. "But they're doing it too late, and for all the wrong reasons." The swarm had entered the solar system expecting to find a primitive species barely capable of reaching their own moon. Instead, they had found humanity at its finest: adaptive, creative, and absolutely prepared to demonstrate why they had survived every challenge their harsh universe had ever thrown at them. "All battle groups report ready," Commander Chen announced. "Operation Phoenix is initialized." "All battle groups report ready," Commander Chen announced. "Operation Phoenix is initialized." Tanaka nodded, her expression grim but determined. "Send the signal. Let's show them why evolution isn't just a biological process. It's humanity's defining characteristic." Throughout the solar system, humanity's forces began implementing the final phase of a strategy that had been centuries in the making. But unlike their previous encounters, this time there was no attempt at stealth. No complex tactical maneuvers, no technological surprises. This time, humanity wanted the swarm to see everything. The Ghost Fleet decloaked first, their quantum stealth fields dropping to reveal ships that had evolved far beyond their original designs. Each vessel now incorporated adapted swarm technology, but used in ways the aliens had never imagined. Crystalline structures merged with human engineering, creating hybrid vessels that represented not just technological advancement, but the fundamental human ability to learn, adapt, and improve. "They're responding exactly as predicted," Chen reported. "Their flagship is broadcasting on all frequencies." The swarm's message was simple: a demand to know how humanity had managed to understand and adapt their technology so quickly. The response they received was not in words, but in action. The main human fleet emerged from hiding, but these weren't the same ships that had fought the initial battles. Every vessel had been modified, improved, evolved based on everything they had learned about swarm technology and tactics. Each ship represented a different approach to space warfare, a different interpretation of how to combine human ingenuity with alien technology. But the true revelation came when the quantum sensors detected something the swarm had missed: subtle changes in their own ship's crystalline structures. The quantum virus that had been plaguing their communications wasn't just corrupting data. It had been gradually altering the very molecular structure of their vessels, introducing variations, forcing evolution at the most fundamental level. "Their flagship is showing signs of quantum instability," Elena reported, a note of satisfaction in her voice. "The changes we introduced into their crystal matrix are beginning to cascade." Tanaka allowed herself a small smile. "Send the final message. Let them understand exactly what they're facing." The transmission that went out to the swarm fleet contained no threats, no demands, no military ultimatums. Instead, it was a simple historical record: the story of human evolution. From primitive cells in ancient oceans to space-faring civilization, humanity had faced countless extinction events. Each time, they had not just survived but emerged stronger, more adaptable, more capable of facing the next challenge. The message was clear: The swarm hadn't just attacked a species, they had attacked evolution itself, personified in human form. As if to emphasize this point, the human fleet began its final attack. But instead of a coordinated assault, each ship operated independently, employing different tactics, different weapons, different approaches. Some used modified swarm technology, others purely human innovations, and still others bizarre hybridizations of the two. The swarm's response was telling. Their ships, for the first time in their species' history, began to show true signs of individual tactical thinking. But it was too late. They had spent too long enforcing conformity, too long eliminating variation, too long fighting against the very force that humanity had embraced, the power of change. Their formation is breaking apart, Chen reported. Multiple ships are attempting to open spatial tiers for retreat, but even their retreat demonstrated how fundamentally humanity had changed the game. The spatial tiers were unstable, corrupted by the quantum variations humanity had introduced into their systems. The swarm's perfect technology, designed for a universe of absolutes, couldn't handle the uncertainty that humanity had woven into its very fabric. As the final battle reached its climax, Tanaka broadcast one last message to her fleet. Remember this moment, not because we won, but because we proved something fundamental about our species. In a universe that demands adaptation, humanity doesn't just survive. We thrive on change itself. The swarm's retreat turned into a rout. Ships disappeared through unstable spatial tiers, their perfect crystalline forms now marked with variations that would continue to spread, continue to change, continue to evolve. They had come to Earth looking for an easy conquest, but they had found instead the very force they had spent millennia trying to eliminate. Evolution, weaponized, and wielded by a species that had turned adaptation into an art form. In the aftermath, as humanity began to explore the technologies and possibilities their victory had opened up, Alina made an observation that would be recorded in every history of the war. They thought they were attacking Earth. Instead, they attacked the very principle of evolution itself. And evolution, as always, responded by producing something new, something better adapted, something they could never have predicted. Humanity at its finest. The swarm would return eventually. Of that humanity was certain. But when they did, they would find a species that had continued to change, continued to adapt, continued to evolve. Because that, more than any technology or tactic, was humanity's true power. The ability to face an ever-changing universe not with rigid perfection, but with endless adaptation.